Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Before we begin the conversation, we want to highlight that tonight's discussion has ASL interpretation by Crescenciano Garcia and Daisy Cardenas. We invite you to pin their windows for those of you who are needing the service, but we will also do the same on our end for your convenience. So thank you for joining us from all over the country. Thanks for being here for Festival Nuestro, Insights from National Latinx Dance Festival Leaders. You are welcome to eat and drink, but please keep your microphone off during that time, and feel free to stretch and move or have a bio break as you need. My name is David Herrera. I'm the director of David Herrera Performance Company, DHPC, and Latinx Hispanic Dancers United, LHDU, based in San Francisco, California, the land of the Ohlone people. DHPC is an organization that centers intersectional U.S. Latinx experiences via performances, community impact programs, and serves as a national community resource. We are happy to announce that we are celebrating our 20th anniversary in 2027. LHDU is geared to building a national Latinx dance community and network, serves as a resource pipeline, and creates programs such as this one where Latinx dance artists are brought together to discuss relevant topics and build from abundance, because we are abundant. Juntos, we are abundant. To learn more about DHPC or LHDU, we will add a website link to the chat in just a second. So Andrea will add that there. Our fantastic administrator, Andrea Spearman, will also be at hand with helping share information as we're speaking and collecting questions from the chat a little later on. Hi, Andrea, and thank you. Okay, so now we are inviting you, the audience, to add your name, your organization, and your location with a land acknowledgement into the chat. Let everybody know that you are here and who you are. And don't be shy. Go ahead and put that in and just, that way we can collect this information and share it with others. Tonight, the conversation is an hour and a half, but which has already started. And the time frame will be as follows. Quick introductions from each festival leader, a moderated conversation with the festival leaders that rounds out the full hour, so it ends at the top of the next hour. And we will end with a 30-minute Q&A to take audience questions for any or all speakers. This is a time for you to really ask something direct and specific that you are holding back or have been wanting to know for a while. We're also providing you with a link in the chat to a full program, which includes the biographies of each speaker, the bios for the respective festivals, website links, and social media handles. There are direct links in this program for all these items. Andrea, can you please add that link on the chat, please? And we'll do this throughout the meeting. We encourage you to open that document and sign up to all the newsletters from all the festival and organizations. So this meeting, I want to explain, this meeting came up because over the years, many Latinx dance artists, including some of you on this call, have asked me about touring your work, and specifically if I knew of any festivals in which you could participate, or asked about festivals that champion Latinx dance artists. While here at DHPC, we have relationships with all the speakers you will hear from tonight. We decided, along with some suggestions from others, to bring together these festival leaders so that all of you, well, really all of us, could hear from them at once to learn about their history, their mission, application processes, and more. Also, I want to point out this will be a yearly offering through LHDU moving forward. So this will happen regularly in January or early February of each year moving forward. So tonight you're going to hear from Gabriel Mata of the Latinx Movement Festival in Washington, D.C., Licia Perea of the BlakTinx Dance Festival in Los Angeles, Liliana Gomez, also of the BlakTinx Dance Festival in Phoenix, Liz Boubion of the Festival of Latin American Contemporary Choreographers, or FLAC, in San Francisco, Adam Castaneda, the Texas Latinx Contemporary Dance Festival in Houston, Texas, and Wilfredo Rivera of the Latinx Latina Contemporary Movement Festival in Chicago, Illinois. All right, y'all. So without further ado, let's meet the speakers. So can we please start with Licia and Liliana of the BlakTinx Dance Festival? Can you tell us a little bit about yourselves? And Licia, please
Sorry.
go right ahead.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Licia Perea from the Latinx Festival in Los Angeles. I was born in Albuquerque, Nuevo Mexico, and I have been dancing since I was a little kid. I have my master's in choreography and performance from the University of New Mexico, where I taught in the dance department for over 8 years before moving to Los Angeles. I have performed as a solo artist and was artistic director of my first company, Danzantes, when I lived in Albuquerque. My husband and I moved to LA, where I was one of the founders of the Latina Dance Project, and we formed that company in 2002. This was a collaborative company comprised of four Latinas: Eva Tesler from Mexico City, Elusa Santos from Brazil, Juanita Suarez from Texas, and myself. I've received many grants and acknowledgments during my career for my choreography from the NEA, states of New Mexico and California, and also local grants. In 2012, I decided I wanted to give back to my Latinx community in Los Angeles, giving opportunities to other Latinx performers. So that was the first that year that I produced Mujeres Bailando, which has morphed into the BlakTinx Festival, which originally was in LA and Tucson, and into its present BlakTinx Dance Festival in LA and Phoenix. During COVID, my husband and I moved from Los Angeles to Joshua Tree, California, where we both now present Mas Festival, which celebrates cultural diversity in performing arts in dance, theater, music, film, as well as visual and the culinary arts. When I'm not dancing, I love to hike, make wine, and also drink wine. Thank you.
Licia, thank you. Well, Liliana, since you are also part of the BlakTinx Dance Festival, please.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Thumbs up? Yes, awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Liliana Gomez. I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico, and have lived in Phoenix, Arizona since I was little. The Sonoran Desert, the land of the Otoham and Maricopa people, have been my home on this side. I'm a choreographer, and like David said, I'm the managing director of the BlakTinx Dance Festival in Phoenix. My work as a choreographer often explores my Mexican identity and personal storytelling through modern dance. Lately, I've been really interested in themes around motherhood, collective care, and what it means to create work from the communities that we're from. I have toured my work throughout the Southwest, received local grants supporting my dance practice. I am part of the Latina Dance Project with Licia and Jose. I have participated in the NALAC Leadership Institute, at Jacob's Pillow's National Presenters Forum. I've also talked at Cornell University about dance and immigration. I've been producing the BlakTinx Dance Festival in Phoenix. Now we're entering year 10 of the BlakTinx Dance Festival here, taking place October 3rd and 4th, 2026, at the Phoenix Center for the Arts in downtown Phoenix. In addition to my dance work, as a dance artist and producer, I am a parent to a toddler who turned 6 this weekend, and I am a public library professional in IT by day. I'm really grateful to be a part of this community and this panel. I'm excited to share space with everyone and to learn from all of you. Gracias.
Thank you, Liliana. If we can next hear from Gabriel Mata.
Hello, everyone. And yes, like David said, it's pronounced Gabriel Mata. I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C., and I direct the Latinx Movement Festival. We are on our third year. To share about how I started is I grew up as an undocumented immigrant, but I was born in the state of Guerrero in Mexico. And in high school, I was told I wasn't a good dancer, so that really propelled, a challenge. They propelled a bit of wanting to share that I can learn and I can adapt and grow. And so I've been dancing ever since. My project-based dance company is called Brown Baby. And one thing within my research and studies that was really propelled by my graduate research is that I wanted to do with a postmodern dance education as I shifted through various degrees of status and citizenship. Um, I wanted to always bring home with me and create home. And so I oftentimes really center my focus around community-based movement forms and what does that look like. And one thing that is very rich about DC is that Latinidad is so dynamic and has such a broad range, not just in the countries that are here, but also the languages, the various forms of citizenship or residencies. And the Latinx Movement Festival also highlights that, the dimensionality of Latinidad. And so we think about movement in many expansive ways, not just as dance, concert, stage performances, but also one that brings in writing, poetry, as well as music and lyrics and social activations from humanities practitioners and writers and scholars. And so we like to expand that and bring more familia in. And I will stop that for now. So we will still be in conversation even after this. Gracias, David.
Okay, gracias, Gabriel. May we please hear from Liz with FLAC?
Hola, hola, buenas tardes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, David, for inviting me and FLAC. And I'm so happy to see some of our community here in the chat. All right, I am neurodivergent, so I'm going to read mine because I have a hard time just talking off the cuff. So here we go. Hello, I'm Liz Duran Boubion. I'm a second generation Chicana, queer, and neurodivergent choreographer, educator, and curator based in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm the founding artistic director of Piñata Dance Collective since 2014, and I've had the honor of directing the Festival of Latin American Contemporary Choreographers since 2014. So that's 12 years now. We're currently on a slight pause, sort of like a menopausal sabbatical, I'd say, but also like a time to reflect in very difficult times politically. FLAC is a resident program of the Dance Mission Theater located on the ancestral lands of the Ramaytush Ohlone people in the Yelamu, now known as San Francisco. And over the past 12 years, the festival has presented more than 150 Latine and indigenous choreographers, scholars, and culture bearers from across the United States, the Caribbean islands, and Latin America. The festival is a grassroots platform that supports contemporary dance artists working across borders and disciplines. In addition to performances by local and visiting choreographers, we organize masterclasses, work-in-progress showings, panel discussions, and an online program called El Grito Podcast. Our intention is to create spaces where artists can share work, exchange ideas, and build relationships rooted in international solidarity. A central commitment of FLAC is creating decolonial sanctuary spaces for Latine dance makers and allied communities, grounded in intersectionality and care. We work to center queer and disability perspectives, language liberation, and adaptive dance practices while supporting artists who are engaging urgent social and political realities through their work. As part of this commitment, FLAC has also been advocating for apartheid-free zones in the dance sector from Turtle Island to Palestine. My own choreographic and teaching practice draws from modern and contemporary dance, contact improvisation, the Tamalpa life art process, eco-somatics, and Chicana feminist spiritualities. And I'm deeply interested in how embodied practices can help build bridges between communities and sustain cultural resilience. I'm very grateful to be here and look forward to our conversation.
Muchas gracias, Liz. Thank you. Okay, next we have two more folks. Adam, we'll hear from Adam next, and then Wilfredo.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Adam Castaneda. I'm very honored to be here. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas, the traditional lands of the Karankawa people. And I am a dancer, choreographer, writer, and arts administrator. I am the executive director of the Pilot Dance Project, which is the umbrella organization of the Texas Latino, Latina, Latinx Contemporary Dance Festival. We are now in our 6th year, and our festival this year runs March 27th through 29th, so we're just around the corner. And I'm very honored to say that at this point, we have served over 60 artists in our short lifespan. Each festival runs 3 evenings, and we are able to produce around 20 to 25 small works every year. In addition to my life in dance, I actually am a full-time English professor at Houston City College, where I teach Mexican American literature and Mexican American fine arts. And that is a little bit of me, and I look forward to this evening's discussion.
Thank you, Adam. And Wilfredo, please.
Buenas tardes, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I really, truly appreciate the opportunity. So I'm Wilfredo Rivera, artistic leader, curator, producer, educator. I serve as artistic director for Circle Rivera Dance Theater, and I'm also the musical theater program coordinator and assistant professor of instruction here at Columbia College, Chicago. Recognizing that we are here in the traditional unceded homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi. I'm originally from Honduras and immigrated to the United States as a teenager with the hunger to study the arts, pursue an artistic life. My life work centers really on heritage, culture, and identity. And throughout my career, I really have pushed and advocated for multiculturalism, multi-generational, and multidisciplinary collaborations, both in concert dance and in theater spaces. A little bit about Circle Rivera because it informs what our festival is about. We bring people together to contemplate both our distinct identities and our shared community. We honor the full breadth of our community, fostering empathy and understanding as pathways to a more connected and compassionate world. We are proudly and visibly multicultural, and we create original dance and music that explore that intersection that feeds my soul, heritage, culture, and identity through authentic personal narratives. In regards to the our Latinx festival, we really are looking to uplift and support emerging and mid-career artists that are embedded in themes of binational identity, multi-generational experiences, immigrant narratives, identity, politics, gender, and queerness within our Latinx community. So quite vast because we know that our community is so mosaic and beautiful in its diversity, and having a gateway for everyone to be able to participate. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And yeah, I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you, Wilfredo. Well, all right. Well, festival leaders, obviously we have questions for you, and we'd like to hear about your history, how you produce the events, what inspired you to make the festival, so on and so forth. But first, I want to point out that when I first started, and I'm sure before many people on the chat started. When I first started into the professional dance field back in the early 2000s, I'm dating myself a little bit, but back in the early 2000s, none of these festivals existed. Right. So, and it was something that I personally craved and looked for, which is the reason why David Her Performance Company and now Latinx Hispanic Dancers United came about, because I craved more spaces that really centered our experiences, both as a comunidad, but also the intersectionality within that community. So with that idea or that thought process in mind, I'm going to ask maybe two folks here to at least get us started. Can I ask uh, Gabriel and also Wilfredo, because Wilfredo just celebrated their first round of the festival in Chicago. Gabriel is several years in, so I want to hear maybe from the two of you, and then maybe if anybody else wants to jump in after that. What what not only inspired you, but then what finally kind of made you say, I have to do this, right? And, how long have you been doing it? Okay, Gabriel, why don't we start with you?
All right. Well, I have to say I've had the wonderful honor to present my work as part of FLAC and the Houston Festival, and it's great to also have an idea of performing in other festivals, but I wanted to really think about how FLAC in Houston was doing it. And I was like, okay, great. Well, what can I do and cultivate? If I can do a show, I can then just add a little few more layers of complexity and make it a festival. And one of the biggest proponents of why to do it is because I have the privilege of living in the nation's capital, and and also to realize that to embody as a Latino in the nation's capital is a milestone, but it can also be acknowledged as protest. It can also be awareness to educate the community about our dimensionality. I think that's so wonderfully rich. And the last thing I will share is that Washington, D.C., although it can be generalized as like very politics forward and big institutions can take over the identity of the arts, the local artists in D.C. truly make it thrive. And to say that, we have a very close, almost familia-like style where you can go to some institution that isn't a Smithsonian or something tied to the government and just be like, hey, I would like to present. How can you help me? Here are the resources I have. What can you share in terms of resources? And that's part of why it has been done at Dance Place, which is the only theater in DC that only does dance. And so I told them, well, why don't we do this? And I shared these ideas, and they have been so willing, supportive, and they want to make it part of an almost institutional programming and offering. And so it's wonderful that sometimes it is about just going down to the local theater and asking, I have an idea. How can you support? This is in service and also needed. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Oh, that's great to hear. Sometimes that simple ask of like, can we get something started can actually lead somewhere, right? But obviously somebody has to light that match. Wilfredo, as the newest festival on the national scene, which just happened last fall in October, what inspired you to get that going? You are based in Chicago, but again, what really made you say like, okay, this is the year this needs to be launched?
Yeah, David, similar to how you started this question, I hunger for a platform like this when I was emerging choreographer back in the day. And it's very so strange to me, alarming actually, that never in the history of Chicago has there been a Chicago Latinx Festival. So I actually shopped the idea around for a couple of years to a couple of foundations and just received no's, maybe, great idea, next time. So after 2 years of rejections, I just looked at my Serpo Rivera Dance Theater team and said, let's embed this into our programming. This can be part of an extension and offering of what the company does. So I was able to infuse it into our operational expenses for the year in a very small budget, but doable, and very fortunate enough that I had an amazing response from the Chicago region, Midwest region, and national scale of the number of submissions that we received just from our inaugural year. So the need is there, the hunger is there, and there, even though there are other festivals in Chicago that serve contemporary or experimental dance and theater, not one that really affords us the room, the breadth, the environment, the support to really portray our voices and our stories through an unfiltered lens. And I feel like that's something that's really needed, not only right now, but just in general.
Awesome. Wilfredo, honestly, and this goes for all of you, like it's so inspiring to see people build these spaces because as you all have figured out already, you get so many applications from all over the country, right? So while some of you may have started regionally, most of your festivals at this point are taking artists from the national level and some of you even internationally. And with that, I'm gonna stay with the same question and I'm gonna post it to one of the festivals that's been here a little bit longer, the FLAC Festival in San Francisco, which I myself have been a part of as well as a performer, performing as a company. So Liz, tell us a little bit of what back in the day, I say back in the day, but a little bit over a decade ago, why did you start that? Why did you start the festival and what did that feel like to finally have that going?
Well, honestly, it was very organic. I mean, making work deconstructing the piñata ritual. I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if I got all my friends here in the Bay to do something like that and have sort of a curated event, and it just was sort of a seed in my mind. And then when I did my first journey as an adult to visit my ancestral lands in Mexico, I had a residency there, and I was in Guadalajara, where my ancestors are not exactly from there, but from Mexico. My ancestors are from Sonora. But when I was there, I created some work and invited 2 artists to the Bay, and I didn't know how I would get them an audience. So unless I invited other people who already had audiences. So I invited all of my Latina and Latino friends that I knew. And then everybody, it just seemed to fill a need. There was nothing like that in the Bay Area, and everyone was also kind of surprised that it wasn't there. But really needing a space where artists could break out of traditional norms and do experimental work. And we grappled with so many questions about using, Western contemporary dance training and how we're still hybridizing as Latinx identity and what is Latini. That we had so many amazing conversations about identity and who is part of it and who belongs. And every year we had new questions like, what is it that unites us? Because we are so diverse. Is it language? No. Is it territory? No, because and it is colonization that kind of creates these divides and these distances between us. So we just concluded that we would self-identify, allow applicants to self-identify, and if they felt that they belonged there, that's what we would do. And then we also felt that we needed to include indigeneity, because a lot of people don't identify as Latina or Latino. They identify as Native. And then there's also Native folks that were here before the Mexican identity. So we had just so much of a learning process and an evolution with it. But yeah, it was very organic, and some of the first people in FLAC are here in the chat, like Diana Lara, also from Honduras, and Kathy Davalos has been making work and leading the St. Mary's dance department for decades, and one of the first Chicana choreographers that I knew about. And Juan Manuel Aldape Munoz is here in the chat, who co-directed FLAC with me for a few years and taught me so much. Yes, and everybody should research their work if they don't know who they are. But we just kind of made it together, like I was asking people, what should we call it? And how should we do this? And like I remember Nata Hoitzima from Mexico was saying, let's just make sure it's contemporary. So I remember that, and that's what kind of came in, and it made sense. If you go to Mexico or you go to a Latin American country, it's already there, and they're doing all the work in all of the forms, all of the genres and styles. And so here in the US, it was necessary to create a space like this for experimentation and breaking out of like folklorico and Azteca and danza, the different more traditional things. And we found out there are amazing people doing hybridized work. So yeah.
And this is great. Actually, you're already touching on something, Liz, that I think is of interest to a lot of people. And I may throw this next question in Adam's way, but it really speaks to what Latinidad, what does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like? So on and so forth, right? And also the word contemporary, right? The word a lot of us move in that contemporary space, but contemporary arts can also be what a lot of people call traditional or cultural dance genres, but they're happening currently, right? Some of them are working in those fields, or as you say, also hybridizing them, so on and so forth. But they don't necessarily always have a hyphen. They just kind of go from one into the other. But I want to ask the question about, and I'm jumping around here with my train of thought. But Adam, with your festival, can you talk about a little bit of what are you looking for? What type of artist are you looking for? Is there Latinidad, a specific Latinidad that you are encompassing? As and that could be intersectionality and accessibility, language, and genres. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Okay, that's such a complex question. So I will do my best. So I originally created the festival as a counterpoint to a lot of the contemporary festivals that are in Texas. So for example, Austin Dance Festival very explicitly says that they are looking for contemporary dance in the realm of classical, modern, or experimental vocabularies. And, at the time, I saw a lot of young choreographers in Houston. We're a city that's 48% Latino. A lot of people don't realize that. They were doing a lot of hybrid work. So, hip hop and contemporary, flamenco and contemporary, Aztec and contemporary. And, I was seeing their work. It was very, very interesting because I hadn't really seen that go on in Houston. And, they were kind of not being able to find opportunities in the established dance festivals here in Texas. So, for me, one of the things I wanted to accomplish was to allow room for that experimentation, but not necessarily define Latinx in terms of cultural forms. We are in very close proximity to Sam Houston State University, which is the area's sort of conservatory style dance school. And so the Latinx students from there are working in a very traditional, contemporary, modern ballet aesthetic. So for me, I wanted a festival that encompassed everything. Because we get more applicants than what we're able to produce, me and my technical director, we have a lot of intention in how we curate. We want to make sure that there are established artists. We want to make sure there are emerging artists, professional artists, pre-professional artists, and not in Latin artists that don't just represent the dominant heritage here, which is Mexican American, but that have roots in Central America and South America as well. So, I mean, it is a lot of putting together lots of puzzle pieces, but once the curation is done, we're always left satisfied with the breadth of work that we're able to show.
Jumping off of this same kind of question of intersectionality and how that gets shown in all of your festivals one way or another, I want to ask Licia and Liliana, because you took that idea and pushed it even further by very clearly naming your festival BlakTinx. Can you talk about what has transpired for you both in the Los Angeles version and the Phoenix version in relationship to the title of the festival, but also how you have branched out also from specific or not even specific, but I should say what maybe sometimes even stereotypical ideas of what Latinidad looks like.
Well, I'll begin answering that question. When I first moved to Los Angeles, back in the late 90s as a young choreographer, I was coming from a little city, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and to LA, it was like, wow. And at that time, there was a lot of tension between different factions of the city, and I felt like I wanted, in my small way, to bring that tension together and see if we could find common ground and maybe a healing through the arts, through dance. And the festival first began as BlakTina, but then it morphed into the BlakTinx as I wanted to bring us together. There was a lot of gang activity at that time between Latinx and Blacks, and I really wanted to see if there was a way to begin to bring some parts of the city together. So that was the inspiration for this, and it created a community, not only for our audiences to come together, but really the dance community, where in LA, I didn't really, as a young choreographer, again, moving into and performing in different festivals, it was very cold, and you would go in, do your work, and then, exit. And there was never really any community connection.
Yeah.
LA is so huge that, for people to really connect is not an easy thing. So that was also at the base of everything, of bringing artists together, creating a community where we could talk. Hey, what are you doing? Let's see if we can, connect on this level, that level, producing, performing. So it grew. It grew. And through that process, I mean, over the years, so many performers would tell me, this is the first time that I have been in a festival that I have felt respected, honored, and celebrated as either a Black choreographer, Latinx choreographer, or many times as
Both.
coming from both of those ancestors. So, yeah, it's been so interesting, the growth of it, and
And
maybe
obviously, I was going to say, sorry, obviously the growth led to the creation of the Phoenix version.
yes, Lily.
Yes, and then we have the Phoenix Festival. I started this festival in Phoenix because, like many of us on this call, probably we're often getting asked to do dance works about Dia de los Muertos and Frida inspired choreography and so on, all the stuff that we hear about. And I often was like, taking on some gigs and double booking myself in my early 30s. And honestly, I was like, wait, it's not just me out here. Where's, there are others, and um people, other producers could find out about others. And a friend of mine who was out in LA saw BlakTinx Dance Festival and like shared the website with me and said, you should check this out. And I called Licia, and then we got on the phone and talked, and she's like, hey, I already have a 501(c)(3). It's already established in
Mm.
Arizona. Do you know how to do any grant writing? And I laughed and I said, well, English is my second language, so let's try. So we got to work and we won this grant and started really small with the one night performance in Phoenix, and did four Black artists and four Latin artists. And, talking about Latinidad, we've had choreographers from who are, from Mexico or from Honduras or Puerto Rican, from Brazil, or mixed races of like Mexican American, Mexican and white. But that's kind of how we've started, and that's how we've been doing it. And we're here in year 10 with Phoenix.
Yeah, and something I want to pose to anybody from the panel to talk about is how do you make sure that you don't stay stagnant in your ideas of what a festival looks like, or who you're curating, or you're bringing in, right? Because a lot of times that can happen to festivals. We all know this. There's a reason that you all created festivals, because we all know the festivals in our regions and what they do and who they promote constantly and over. So what are you doing on your own? And this could include also maybe what does the layout and the landscape of your festival look like? Because it's not, for some of you, it's not just about performances. There's community organization, there's talkbacks, there's workshops, there's dance parties, right? There's other things that go into making this festival a vibrant an inviting space. So in taking that idea, but also in how are you making sure that you are also reaching out to maybe underrepresented communities within our own Latinidad? Yeah, can you please, Gabriel, please go ahead and take it.
I think one of the wonderful offerings of Latinidad for me is I grew up assimilating to like US white education. And that is what I know. And one of my benefits as director is that I get to do the act of unlearning and relearning and creating this festival to educate myself, but also to educate community. One of the artists coming in this year dances Zouk, and they're from Brazil. And it's amazing to experience this dance form and present it to the community. And they've been around for a while in DC, and this is just me learning about them for the first time. And it shows the capacity of expanding what can be offered. But also, one thing that I'm very excited about, because we're not a contemporary dance festival, we are a movement conscious festival, is that we have a poet advisor who's actually from Chicago. So give it up to Chicago. We have a scholar in residence. And we also have this year a humanities practitioner. So they will be writing about the activations that happen in the space. And also, if that wasn't enough, we have a visual arts exhibit going on. So we will be highlighting Latinx artists throughout the DMV, which is DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And so I think it's just the openness, the generosity from others, the also learning of who is around your community that offers the ability to expand further and wider and creating a bigger familia.
Liz, very similarly, you have the Flag Festival also has these activations that happen around it. It's not, again, I participated, I've been to many of them in the San Francisco area. So they never look the same. Year to year, I can honestly say the Flag Festival looks different. And so that has kept imagination going and freshness going. So how do you incorporate newness, but also how do you incorporate I'm going to use the word difference between us into the festival and accessibility. So I'll turn it over to Liz, and then Adam. I kind of very similar. I want to jump to you and talk about this idea of how do you address safety and vulnerability, especially in very charged political climates. So we'll start with Liz and move on to Adam.
Yeah, it's different every year. I feel like our audience grows every year and changes, and oftentimes the curatorial process is based off what is happening in our world, or even maybe an artist that has a certain set of identities or needs that then becomes central to the festival. So yeah, like COVID-19, we had it online, and that was amazing. It actually really expanded our reach in our community to other countries in a bigger way. And then we wanted to go outside the next year because it was still a pandemic problem. And then we were like, how can we dance on the land without acknowledging the indigenous communities? And we've always been in relationship with some of the stewards of Ohlone land. But we wanted to really centralize our relationship to indigeneity and our cousins who are sharing a lot of the same struggles, but who actually are indigenous to San Francisco. And so it became an embodied land acknowledgement, and it was an amazing street closure and decolonization of the buses and the routes and everything. It was great. And then the next year, or we did 2 years of that, and then I think it was our 10-year anniversary, and we decided to bring people, all visitors mostly, from different places. And then the next year after that, the genocide in Gaza, the current genocide in Gaza began. And that was, actually, it started in 2023, which was our 10-year anniversary, which actually was difficult timing because somehow our social media was compromised. But anyway, when you're producing a festival, things can happen. But we decided to devote all of our attention on solidarity the next year after that. And we've been consulting with an amazing Ecuadorian Palestinian yoga instructor, and also how would I describe them? I guess they're rooted in a care economy. So we've been really just kind of getting deeper and deeper into the layers of what it means to make art during these times of war. I mean, it's exhausting, and it's also just like something that can't be ignored.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's always kind of dependent on what is needed. And last year we just decided, okay, it's not time to make a show. It's not time to entertain necessarily. We really want to focus on our audience. And so we created Santuario, which is sanctuary, and had it in all the different spaces of the theater and really centralized our audience. And then as far as disability justice goes and language liberation, like these are things that we are always growing into. I've had some amazing conversations with Christopher Unpes Verde from New York, who's from Costa Rica and who's presently in New York. And we talk a lot about how community can create accessibility and how, we say it's expensive. It is expensive to get the interpreters and to have the haptic tours and all the things that are needed to provide access for folks. And we can also train our audiences to take care of each other, and give people agency about what kind of care they need. But but yeah, so that's been a really interesting, just the way that community and everybody in the room is responsible for consent. Everyone in the room is responsible for access and accessibility, and everyone in the room is responsible for welcoming each other and making someone feel welcome. So that's kind of been the mission behind the work. And, yeah.
But it starts with somebody. It starts with leadership, which is all of you, right? So this idea starts with somebody who's willing to take that on, and not only take it on, because that's probably the wrong choice of words, but to embrace that and to go with it, even if it's hard to put on, especially with funding and things like that. But I think it's important. So with that, also, Adam, how do you? This is something that I think you really concentrate hard on. Is how do you address this idea of safety and vulnerability in your programming?
Well, when I started this festival, I didn't want to create just another program for me to execute. Prior to this festival, um, I was kind of handed over the Houston version of the Fringe Festival. So if you've heard of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, for about 10 years, I produced the Houston iteration, which is very, it was a very big endeavor. I'm glad I did it, but I don't know um, the whole process of creating a festival just felt like an impersonal challenge for me. So what I wanted to do with the Latinx Festival is I wanted it to have that kind of like family feel because, I think, there's nothing more heartbreaking than seeing, an artist not have the opportunities that they want. Like they get into a festival and then it takes them another 2 years to get into their next festival. So what I wanted to do was have a curatorial process that, fostered this idea that the Latinx Festival in Houston is something that you could build a career around. No matter what, at least once a year, you have an opportunity to show something. So to accomplish that, we actually have 2 rounds of submissions. The first is an internal round that goes out towards to the 60 so artists who have presented before. And we curate about 75% of the program from that internal call. If we have a lot of submissions from the internal call, we have a wait list in case we don't find what we're looking for from the public call. But in the public call, we're specifically looking for first-time artists to sort of join the family that we are creating. And so, I kind of looked at this year's roster, and there are artists who have come back 4 out of the 6 years that we've been, in existence. So, yeah, I think, the way to develop accessibility, care, community is by seeing familiar faces. That's kind of human nature, right? You have to cultivate those faces that you'll see, every year. But at the same time, also understanding that I have a limited budget. I can't produce everyone.
Right.
So maybe a year or 2, I might ask you to sit out, but you'll come back the next year.
Actually, you hit on something that I think most people would want to hear, and it's actually also already shown up in the chat. But I'm gonna bring this up. How important is location and geography for all of you? And maybe if we could have a quick answer from all of you, because I think this is important to hear from all of you. How important is geography in with the idea of planning the festival and funding the festival, and which applicants make it into the festival? So can we start, Wilfredo, since you're first on my screen, I'll just start off with you, and then I'll just go down the line. So please, Wilfredo.
Sure. Since it was our first time, and we do have plans of expanding and doing different types of models to what we're doing. But for the first time, Honestly, I was really surprised by the amount of submissions we got from outside of the Chicago region, which was just really inspiring and rewarding, right? So, looking at the buckets, as Adam was saying, that I wanted to fulfill, make sure that every type of movement was incorporated within the vocabulary of the festival, because this is why it's called a contemporary movement festival, so that we are open to various sources. So we did take folks from out of town, and we worked in a way to figure out how to make that possible for them. In one instance, for example, an artist did fundraising on their own to be equitable, to offer equitable pay for their dancers. So the way that we could support them was by including them in our newsletter, by promoting their fundraising campaign, by really staying with them along that road. The two others that came to the festival, they funded themselves. So by that means, and also keeping the ensembles that were coming out of town small, 1 to 3 people, made it affordable and feasible for that to come about as well. And the rest of them were from the city of Chicago. And 2 of them are actually Latinx members of Circle Rivera Dance Theater. So it was quite an umbrella of different perspectives.
Yeah. So it does. My personally, I'm always also curious, like, how did the festival end up with the people that end up, right? And what is the difference? Not the difference, but what is the ratio of local artists, which I think all festivals should support, but then versus the ones that you're bringing in from out of town or making their way to you if they're self-producing, self-funding that experience. Adam, since you're next on my screen, I'll just can we hear from you and we go.
So I am in Texas. We are a state that is governed by essentially one political party. However, that political party is very generous to the arts, surprisingly. So, my festival would not exist without the grant making initiatives that I do every year. So I'm very thankful to our local government and our state government for making that possible. And that does allow me to pay an honorarium to each artist who comes. Now, for out of town artists, it is a bit tricky because even though we have a good range of applicants from out of the state, typically it's kind of a 50-50 if they're able to financially make it, just because we don't have the bandwidth to provide accommodations, provide transportation, a plane ticket, all of that stuff. So it really does have to come down to the artist, if they feel that this performance opportunity is worth it, then they are kind of tasked with funding their trip, but they do get the artist stipend like everybody else. And like I said earlier, the city is 48% Latino, and then the state is also a really high percentage. I think it's actually the threshold is beyond 50. So lots of applicants from the Lone Star State. But part of I think the beauty of a festival is for a community to experience what's going on the outside. So yeah, if an out of town person applies, I would say 9 times out of 10 they're going to get the invite to come because yeah, we want to see what's going on the coasts.
Or not just on the coast, but also in others, especially in the middle of the country and things like that, right? Gabriel, can you speak to that again, to the location, the geography, how important is that, the funding and getting and the application process?
You know, oh God, it's about money. How much money do we have? How much can we disperse and share? That feels like it's a responsible, equitable way. Um, I want to also plug in that it's not just about going somewhere and performing. This problem or this idea has come up in my mind, and I've thought about like, well, how can we support someone although they can't perform here? Like performing here doesn't equate value to so in a different way. Like, what if you have the backing of the Latinx Movement Festival? We can write a letter of recommendation. We can have a supporting statement. You can be part of the familia, even though at the moment there may be financial barriers. Like, let's make it happen. We want to support all the artists, and maybe you're not performing now, but you can in the future. The second thing, we are not a nonprofit. However, when we went knocking for opportunities, we asked for fiscal sponsorship. So now we have access to not just city funding, but we also have national funding opportunities. So we're trying to grow the capacity of receiving more and more funds and growing this even bigger and larger. And hopefully in 2 years, we will be a nonprofit and be on our own and have our own identity. But you know what? We grow bit by bit every year, and I am so tired.
That's real talk
But
right there.
right. But I just, we try to do it all the time, and we try to have as broad of a range in what we showcase because it is so rich and delicious, and we can't do it all. But as we see ourselves growing, we will try to do the most always.
Yeah, Licia and Liliana, you have a very interesting position in this moment of the conversation because you started in one place, but you branched out to a completely different state. So, but now that you have these two locations, how do you address the geography of the applicants and the funding that goes to maybe presenting them? Or also, you also have the unique experience of co-presenting artists that go from one performance space in LA to Phoenix or vice versa. So Licia and Liliana, I'll let you kind of both take this question, not this question, but this at the same time.
Yeah, it has always been a dream to cross-pollinate voices from different parts of the country. And it's so wonderful, again, to be with all of you and to have this cross-pollination of presenters. But it has been a really wonderful opportunity for the artists to from LA to go to Phoenix. Phoenix artists come to LA and have that experience of touring. It's not easy as a young artist to, number one, get into a festival, number two, be able to take work out of state. And it has always been on the top of my priorities is to pay to compensate the artists. That's absolutely number one. So it's about grant writing, finding donors, just thinking outside of the box of fundraising and just how can we make this work. I have a friend who has a house. So, at times people have stayed in my house, in other friends' house. Somehow you make it work. So it's, really just supporting the artists, supporting their visions, and being able to take them to new and different places.
Yeah, so Liliana, one of those artists from LA lands in Phoenix. ¿Qué pasa?
Well, for Phoenix, many of our grants that we receive are city and state funds, so they have to stay with city artists, right, in the regions. So, what we've done in the past is we bring 90% of the presenting artists are going to be from Phoenix, and then we bring two LA artists to Phoenix, one Black artist and one Latin artist. And then we compensate by paying them to teach classes to the community. And that's the way that we can pay them and bring them out here and that they are serving the Phoenix community. So that is like a little roadway that we have created to bring them here.
Yeah, a
So
workaround.
a workaround, correct, a workaround. So BlakTinx Dance Festival is not a national festival, so we only stay regional, Phoenix, Arizona, and then Los Angeles. But we have been figuring out how to do that, and we haven't opened it up to the rest of the states because of, funding. Where do you stay when you get here and stuff like that, and want to be really conscious about like the sustainability of it all, right? With that being said, however, we have invited guest artists from outside the region who have really strong connections to Phoenix, who were either born here or went to school here. Both of them came from Oregon. Hannah Victoria and Cynthia Gutierrez came out here, and both of them did GoFundMe's on their own, and we helped um, put that out on social media, but it was because the plane ticket rides, right? We can give them a certain amount, and this is what we do. And then the rest is like plane tickets for like 6 other people, which is like,
Right.
wild,
Right.
wild. But we've offered like get them a house here, get them. Licia and I go to Costco, and we fill the fridge up, and we have little like parties and stuff together. But just like everybody else on this call, I really want to know how everybody else is doing it, so that I'm learning with you all as well.
Great. All right. So I took this question from the chat. So this is technically one of the audience questions. I wanted to say that as well, because I know we're in the audience Q&A portion. So Liz, we'll have you finish this round of that particular question of geography and funding. We'll get a quick answer from you, and then we can open this up truly to more Q&A from the audience.
I'll try to be brief. It did start out with nothing. We made something from nothing, and it was community who, Leah Tawil from TAC, the Temescal Art Center in Oakland, donated a space for us to do our first festival. And I think it was produced in like a month. We just like threw it together, but it did not look that way, It looked amazing, and it always does. It always looks amazing, even though we're all like super stressed out every year, even to this day. But it was always a commitment. Like that year, we gave them whatever the audience gave us, and so I think each artist got $40. And then that next year, they got 200, and then the next year they got like more and more, and then it like kind of reached a sort of 1,000-ish to 2,000 depending on the scope. And of course, an artist can't really show the entirety of their work. Often they're just able to show like 20 minutes or something like that. But yeah, it is a commitment that we have. It's part of our care economy to take care of artists and to take care of the staff. And but it started out in a volunteer capacity, and then once we started getting all the city and state grants, then we were able to do more. But now we're not getting funding, and there might be a lot of different reasons for that. Some are political, but also capacity, and a lot of just a time to, well, we haven't stopped. We're just sort of reflecting right now.
Right.
But it is interesting that certain grants that we were counting on did choose not to fund FLAC this year. So I'm not sure what that is. We're very politicized. We're very unapologetic in our grant writing, and probably less strategic than we should be. And I'll take responsibility for that, because I'm the one who writes most of the grants. I'm the one who writes the grants. But they're rooted in vision and liberation, and hopefully they will have a different tune next year when they see the work that we do, and how it's fed our artists. But yeah.
Well, listen, Gabriel, I know you want to jump in, but feel free to put something in the chat, just because I want to open it up to the audience who is here to ask any of you specifically, or all of us, any questions that you're holding back or been thinking about with festivals, and that could be about applications, so how often it happens, things like that. So please don't be shy. And I know some of you all have questions because you guys have asked me. So this is a time to ask the leadership of these festivals.
Well, let's dig into some of the questions that came from the chat. I know from Diana Laura, you asked about giving priority to regional or national versus international or more contemporary versus other dance styles. Do you feel like the panelists answered that question for you a little bit?
Yes, thanks so much. Was good to hear like the differences between the different festivals. I appreciate it.
And it looks like there is another one, Andrea. Can you read that for us for coming from Kathy Davalos?
Yes. Kathy, they touched on it a little bit, but your question was you wanted to hear about how funding is going, how they're making their festival work with less funding, how might we share and build together to keep these festivals and events going. And I think our speakers have already said, a lot of it is really comunidad, of taking what you have and making it really useful. And it's really the reaching out to people that are closest to you. I'm not sure if that was Liz or Licia who said, asking, if someone has a house, can artists come stay with you, who are from out of town? Asking local community venues, can we partner with you? Can we get the space for free? And then we'll give you a sponsorship in our program, things like that. If anyone has anything else to add to that, those kind of strategies for funding or community exchanges.
Yeah. It looks like we have a hand raised, Vanessa Cruz, and then we have another question that just came in on the chat. So Vanessa, feel free.
Hola, hello. My name is Vanessa. So excited to be in community with you all. I'm just curious, like, has there been um, initiatives in reaching out to more of disabled Latina community artists, teaching artists? I know, Liz, you touched a little bit on that, and that's really exciting to hear. I just want to open up that question a little bit more to see if anyone else has, because I would love to see more representation of disabled artists, particularly Latina disabled artists in these festivals. And thought.
Thank you, Vanessa. Who would like to take that question, please? Wilfredo, go right ahead.
Sure. Just in regards to what everyone is talking about, inclusivity in our spaces, we work with an artist in our first year, and like everyone is sharing here, finding ways to make it compatible, make it work, make it accessible, make it welcoming and a welcoming environment for them and for their guests as well. So that is important for me personally, for us as well, to be able to offer those spaces. And in regards to the previous questions and how to then continue to find ways to produce it and find funding. I was just so lucky this first year that some of my superiors and colleagues at Columbia College came to see the performance, and everyone was just so taken in. And we're working right now to hopefully, knock on wood, become part of the institutional programming, part of their renderings. So that's something that hopefully can happen for a number of seasons coming up. But that's something that we're working on. So when you think again, one door closes, like they said, some other window opens, finding that community. And for us, it's really important to build that community. So the more voices that are represented, the more community that we build. So.
Would somebody else in the panel like to pick up on the same question that Vanessa posed about presenting disability artists? Gabriel, please go right ahead.
I think I have two connecting thoughts, is that one, we may not have the capacity or the awareness of, but we like to have transparency. And if you have our email address, we can be in conversation. We can set up a Zoom meeting, a phone call, whatever, and hear your ideas. Like, that is just a way. There's no one formula to plan a festival or one vision to curate a program. And so if you have an idea and it feels strong and you are like, I really need to get this out and share it, like, why not just send an email and begin that conversation? And secondly, is that I think it undoes the hierarchy of how you apply for a festival. I don't think that submitting an application is the only way that you can share your idea. So I'm just now repeating myself to only say that although we did have an application to submit work, like that's not the only way to do it. If anything, we're trying to break down these like institutional practices because I'm not here demanding that you must know how to submit an application. You must know how to word what your work is about. If you have a feeling about it and it feels strong, just share it with us, even if it's verbal, a video, whatever format feels the most comfortable and you feel agency and security about it. We're up for hearing, listening to it, seeing it, whatever it is. There's no one way to do it.
Yeah. Um, there's another question that came up, and I'm going to move just through some of these because we're running short of time. This was, I think, a very straightforward question. It's from Megan, and they ask, are there any applications for any of these festivals that are currently open? Anybody have an open application right now? I know for most of you, your application process is just closed in January and in February. So that's something for the audience members to keep in mind, that most of these applications, because the festivals happen later time in the year, the applications usually happen early in the year. No open festivals or applications right now? But as Gabriel just said, just because there's an application time or cycle, it does not mean you cannot reach out. Somebody asked for the link, so we're going to put back the program link in the chat. So, and there you're going to find all the links to all the organizations and the artists and whatnot. So we'll give that. Kathy again with the funding here. In this, we'll throw anybody to anybody. We got two people or several people who touched on this, but maybe let's hear from some of you about, have any of you seen any withholding of funding because of the political climate? Okay, Liz, go ahead.
Can I jump in and sorry. Oh, sorry. Go, Liz. Go, Liz. Go.
No, go for it. I kind of feel like it's such a depressing
okay. I'm gonna jump in and just be like, hey, grants do not make our destiny. We're not bound by them. The organization we're working with, Dance Place, will do the effort of finding the money. We work with Spanish departments in our local universities. We work with local Latino organizations and we talk to them and we're like, we need money. We want to do this. This is our idea. Like, we are not bound by national and city grants because we need to get the work out there no matter what.
Okay.
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of like that. One thing I was going to say about our application process is that we don't always have one. Sometimes it's by invitation and sometimes it's by application and sometimes it's a combination of both. And so much has to do with also our commitment to representation. You know, like we always need to have a gender balance and we want to make sure we're representing or giving queer folks a voice, and immigrant and migrant generation dancers a voice, and disabled folks a voice, and everyone. So in a way, it's like the curatorial process often has to do with making sure that we are balanced in our representation. And then, so it's often not because the work isn't good or something like that. It's that, and then there's the geography. Like if we have to have a certain percentage of local artists, then we have to do that too. So, you know, there's a lot of things. So whenever you apply and if you don't get accepted, please know that it's not necessarily because of the quality of your work. And so much has to do with just our limitations, really. It's almost always our limitations. There's so many amazing people who I have seen come through, and I've wanted to be able to at least share, like lift it up online or have a conversation that's public like this one, or, doing something that's a little bit more within our means. So there's a lot of options for getting visibility, which I think festivals kind of in a way serve. They serve the purpose of getting noticed and like yeah, and so there's lots of ways that we can lift you up, and so do reach out and like send an email and say hello and send us your work. And one of the most gratifying parts about being a director of something like this is that we do get exposed to so many incredible people that we didn't even know about. So yeah. Anyways.
There's a question, and I feel like we all know the answer here. There was a question that asked, what has been the biggest challenge in sustaining a Latinx dance festival over time? For me, I think I know it's always the funding. Am I correct in that, y'all? Am I correct in saying that? But if there is something else that you think, and might be the last answer or question we get to answer, is there something else that maybe makes it a challenge to sustain a festival? Because it doesn't seem like artists are like you need artists. Artists are always eager. So is there anything else that makes it difficult or challenging?
I'll just say that as the BlakTinx now in its 14th year, we have gone through a lot of challenging times. I mean, COVID was like really intense. So going from a theater, a public performance, to 2 years online, 2 years in Leimert Park in South Central LA, and then finding, an alternative space because of the theater that we had been performing lost, they closed. So, I mean, just being open and being able to go with the flow. Now in these times, just really being open and respectful and honoring what is happening with our community. Having last year to cancel a couple of the events that I do here also in Joshua Tree for the Latino community. We have to just be open and fluid about every year is different. It's not always, a blueprint and that's it, you go for it. We really have to just be open and go with the flow.
Thank you. Well, listen, y'all, we're coming on time. So with this, I know we can continue this large conversation. And we will, obviously, at the beginning of every year moving forward. And we'll have it earlier because in that way, applications will probably still be open during that time. But again, don't think that you have to wait for an application cycle to reach out to any of the artists, panelists, and leadership here. You have all their information. So please, take that link for the program and take all that information with you because that's a way to keep in contact with all of us here. So thank you to our speakers. Thank you to our ASL translators, our administrator, Andrea Spearman, doing the behind the scenes work, and to all of you for joining us tonight. Again, keep the program link, but this material will also live on throughout the rest of the year in the David Herrera Performance Company website with all the links to all these organizations and artists as well. So that will be showing up very shortly. And we will be reaching out to all of you via email who registered to send this information out to you as well. Bueno, thank you all very much for being here tonight. I hope this information was that was helpful, how to be in a festival setting and how to be in community with all the artists. And again, we'll be in touch with you all as well, sharing all the links and website information for everybody who participated. Have a good rest of your night, everybody. Festival speakers, please stick around. Buenas noches, gracias.